in a country known as the Land of Opportunity, where thousands of international students travel every year to chase their dreams. 2 young lives from Bangladesh suddenly disappeared without a trace. What began as a simple missing persons case quickly turned into something far more disturbing. A story filled with mystery, fear, and unanswered questions. They came to the United States with hope. Hope for a better future, better education, and a better life. Like many others, they left behind their families, their homes, and everything familiar, believing that their sacrifices would one day be worth it. Their names were Zamil Lyman and Nahida Bristi, 2 bright students, 2 dreamers, 2 individuals who believed that hard work and determination would take them far in life. Zamil Lyman was known among his peers as quiet, focused, and disciplined. He was someone who didn't speak much, but when he did, his words carried meaning. He had a clear goal: to succeed academically and build a life that would make his family proud. Nahida Bristi, on the other hand, was full of energy and ambition. She had a strong personality, a kind heart, and a vision for her future. She was not just studying for herself, she was studying for her family, for her dreams, and for everything she believed in. Their journey to the United States was not easy. It required effort, sacrifice, and courage. But they made it. They reached a place where they believed their future would begin. Life in a foreign country, however, is never simple. There are challenges everywhere. Cultural differences, financial pressure, loneliness, and the constant struggle to adjust to a new environment. But like many international students, they were trying their best. They attended classes, managed their daily lives, and slowly built a routine. To reduce expenses, they shared accommodation with others. And that decision would later become the center of this tragic story. Among the people they lived with was an American roommate, someone they saw every day, someone they shared space with, someone who seemed normal, at least on the surface. At first, nothing appeared unusual. Days passed like any other. Life moved forward. Everything seemed fine, until one day, everything changed. Without warning, both Zamil and Nahida suddenly stopped responding. Their phones went silent. Messages were left unanswered. Social media activity stopped completely. At first, their friends didn't think much of it. Maybe they were busy. Maybe they were focusing on studies. Maybe they just needed some time. But as hours turned into days, concern began to grow. Friends tried reaching out again and again. No response. Calls, messages, nothing. Back in Bangladesh, their families started to worry. Parents who once spoke to their children regularly suddenly found themselves staring at silent phones. They called repeatedly. They waited. They hoped. But deep inside, fear started to grow. Something wasn't right. Eventually, their families and friends reported the situation to authorities. Police began their investigation. At first, it was treated as a missing persons case. Officers started gathering basic information. Where were they last seen? Who did they meet? What was their daily routine? Everything seemed normal, until one detail stood out. The last known contact of both students was their roommate. This detail immediately caught the attention of investigators. They decided to speak with him. During the initial conversation, he appeared cooperative, calm, normal. But as questioning continued, small inconsistencies began to appear. His statements didn't fully match the timeline. Certain details seemed unclear. Some answers felt incomplete. Investigators became suspicious. They started looking deeper. They examined phone records. They reviewed digital activity. They analyzed movements and patterns. And slowly, a darker picture began to emerge. Something had happened. Something serious. Days into the investigation, a breakthrough came. Authorities discovered a body. It was Zamil Lyman. The moment that confirmation came, everything changed. This was no longer a missing persons case. This was now a murder investigation. The news spread quickly. Shockwaves moved through the community. Friends were devastated. Families were shattered. How could this happen? Why would this happen? And most importantly, who was responsible? All signs pointed back to one person, the roommate. Authorities acted swiftly. He was taken into custody and formally charged with murder. The person who once shared the same living space was now the prime suspect in a horrific crime. But even after the arrest, many questions remained unanswered. What exactly happened inside that house? Was it a sudden argument, a planned act, or something that escalated out of control? Investigators continued their work. They examined every piece of evidence, every detail, every clue. But one major question still remained. Where was Nahida Bristi? She was still missing. No trace, no confirmed sighting, no clear answers. The fear surrounding her disappearance made the situation even more terrifying. Families waited for updates. Friends prayed for good news. But uncertainty filled the air. One life had already been lost, and another was still unknown. This was no longer just a tragedy. It was a mystery that was far from over. After the discovery of Zamil Liman's body, the investigation intensified significantly. What was once treated as a missing persons case had now become a full-scale criminal investigation. Law enforcement agencies increased their efforts, knowing that time was critical, especially with Nahida Bristi still missing. Search teams were deployed across multiple locations. Officers examined nearby areas, wooded regions, empty roads, and even water bodies. Every possible place where evidence could exist was carefully investigated. The pressure on investigators grew stronger with each passing day. Behind the scenes, detectives worked tirelessly. They began reconstructing a detailed timeline of events leading up to the disappearance. They analyzed phone records, text messages, call logs, and digital footprints. Every step taken by the victims in their final hours was carefully traced. And once again, all paths led back to the same individual, the roommate. Investigators focused heavily on his movements, behavior, and communication patterns. They compared his statements with the evidence they had collected, and the inconsistencies became impossible to ignore. There were gaps in his story, moments that could not be explained, actions that raised serious questions. Authorities believed that something significant had happened inside the residence. A place that should have been safe had turned into the center of a violent event. While the exact sequence of events was still being determined, investigators suspected that there may have been a conflict, perhaps an argument, perhaps tension that had been building over time, or perhaps something more complex. Whatever the cause, it led to a tragic outcome. At this stage, officials explored several possible motives. Personal disputes were considered. Living together can sometimes create tension, especially in stressful environments. Financial issues were another possibility. Shared expenses and responsibilities can sometimes lead to disagreements. Psychological instability was also taken into account. In some cases, individuals may act unpredictably due to mental stress or underlying conditions. However, no single motive was officially confirmed. The truth remained hidden within the details of the investigation. Meanwhile, the news of the incident spread rapidly across communities. The Bangladeshi community in the United States was deeply shaken. Students began to feel uneasy. Parents back home became increasingly concerned. The idea that such a tragedy could occur within a shared living environment raised serious concerns. People began asking difficult questions. How safe are international students? How well do we truly know the people we live with? Could this situation have been prevented? Fear and uncertainty became common emotions. Back in Bangladesh, the families of the victims were going through unimaginable pain. They had sent their children abroad with hope and trust. They believed they were building a future. Now they were faced with loss and unanswered questions. The confirmation of Zamil's death was devastating, but the uncertainties surrounding Nahida Bristi made the situation even more painful. Not knowing what happened can sometimes be harder than knowing the truth. Families waited anxiously for updates. They hoped for answers. They prayed for closure. At the same time, legal proceedings began in the United States. The suspect was formally charged in court. Prosecutors began building their case using all available evidence. Forensic analysis played a crucial role. Investigators examined physical evidence collected from the scene. Digital data was also critical. Messages, calls, and online activity helped piece together the timeline. Witness statements were gathered. Anyone who had seen or interacted with the individuals was questioned. The goal was clear: to uncover the truth, to establish what happened, and to ensure that justice would be served. But despite all efforts, one part of the story remained unresolved. Nahida Bristi. Her whereabouts was still unknown. No confirmed discovery. No closure. This uncertainty continued to haunt both investigators and families. It left a gap in the story, a painful, unanswered question. As the case progressed, it also highlighted a larger issue: the vulnerability of students living abroad. Thousands of young people leave their home countries every year in search of education and opportunity. They adapt to new environments, build new relationships, and create new lives. But sometimes hidden risks exist. Living with strangers, trusting unfamiliar individuals, navigating challenges alone. This case serves as a reminder that awareness is essential, caution is necessary, and safety should always be a priority. It also reminds us that behind every headline, there are real people, real families, real emotions. Two individuals who once had dreams, two lives that were changed forever. One story that continues to raise questions, and a truth that is still waiting to be fully revealed. Until all answers are found, this case will remain a haunting example of how quickly life can change. From hope to tragedy, from dreams to silence, and from certainty to mystery.